Hey, coming up on today's Locked On Big Ten, Jay Stevens is in to go over the Ohio State basketball last couple of weeks. It's been an exciting few games here for the Buckeyes, including one that just wrapped up that we have to get with Jay about. And also, Ryan Day's another name, like Jim Harbaugh, who we talked about last week, who has his name attached to some NFL coaching rumors. Could it be possible that he would ever leave the Buckeyes right now for the pros? We'll ask Jay all about it here on Locked On Big Ten.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Big Ten. Nate Dickinson with you here. We got a good show, as always, lined up for you today. Here to kick off the week, Jay Stevens is in to break down the Ohio State basketball situation, as they are one of the many teams in the top 25 that has been off to a good start of the year. And also, Ryan Day's name has been around Ohio State coaching and NFL coaching jobs, I should say. He's already got the Ohio State one. Could he leave Ohio State for the pros? We'll ask Jay about what he thinks about the rumors around his head coach on the gridiron. That's all coming up right here on the show in just a minute. First, we'll get you all the scores from over the weekend you may have missed, and of course, let you know what's going on here today around the Big Ten. In men's basketball, of course, over the weekend, a huge weekend, just slate of games as always. So I'll just run down scores right now. Nebraska lost to Purdue 92-65. Number 25, Illinois beat Michigan at home 68-53. Another tough loss for the Wolverines. Northwestern upset Michigan State. It was the biggest win of the weekend. 64-62 the final score in that matchup. Rutgers beat Maryland 70-59. Ron Harper Jr. had 31 points, 6 of 8 from three-point range as well. Penn State, as we mentioned, just lost to Ohio State 61-56 earlier today. And to round out the weekend of Big Ten games, Iowa beat Minnesota by 10 in Minnesota, 81-71, the final score. On today's slate for basketball around the Big Ten, we've got two games on the schedule, one a really good one. Number 7, Purdue's facing off against number 25, Illinois. That one's going to be fun, no doubt. And then later on, Indiana faces off against Nebraska. That one will be at 6 Eastern Time, 5 Central. Early game is at noon Eastern Time, 11 Central. Sorry, messed up times there. But again, we got it out at the end. Again, 6-5 Central for the late game. 12-11 Central for the early matchup. In other sports, women's basketball, a big one out there tonight. Number 11 Michigan faces off against number 8 Maryland. A game I'll, of course, have more for you on and recap tomorrow. Also, number 6 Indiana faces off against Purdue, a pretty big rivalry matchup as well. And on the mats, Wisconsin is facing off against Minnesota in wrestling. It'll be a good one here today, too. Again, all around a nice day of Big Ten sports, no matter what it is that you're interested in. We got a really good conversation with Jay from Locked On Buckeyes coming up on the show here today. So I'm going to hand it right off over to that talk that I had with Jay earlier here today. You're listening into Locked On Big Ten. Welcome back into Locked On Big Ten. Everything you need to know about the conference every day of the week, Monday through Friday. We're joined now by Isaiah Hull of Wolverines Wire and, of course, Locked On Wolverines, covering the Michigan teams all the time and telling us about it once a week here on Locked On Big Ten. Thanks again for joining us, Isaiah. We've got a lot to talk about with Michigan, but the biggest thing to discuss right now, at least, I think, around the national spotlight, I don't know if it's the big talk around Michigan on campus as well, but Jim Harbaugh right now is being rumored to a lot of these NFL head coaching jobs that are opening up. Now, I'll talk to you more about like specifics and things with jobs and stuff like that in a minute, but I want to first just kind of get from you as someone who's there. What is your take on just kind of the relationship between Jim Harbaugh and this Michigan football team right now?
Well, I think it's business as usual, right? And I know there's all these rumors and everything, but Jim Harbaugh is not acting like he's going anywhere. He's been in Schembechler Hall for the most part. He went down to Houston for the Bear Bryant Award. He's been planning on going on the road recruiting as soon as this dead period ends, and he's told his players and recruits that initially there was a report which I believe to be accurate, that he had told a recruit that he's going to gauge his NFL interest, but he's also told recruits he's not going anywhere. So at the moment, I think that it's status quo. I think the big thing is though, until he signs that extension and the announcement is made, there's going to be a little bit of an uneasiness when it comes to Jim Harbaugh as it relates to Michigan. I personally don't expect him to go anywhere, but again, never say never until, I know he's still very much under contract, but I mean, it's a very favorable contract to get out of from either party. So until he signs that, mega extension that everyone's kind of anticipating, putting it somewhere, not necessarily on par with James Franklin and Mel Tucker, but the reports indicate that it will be something that's going to be very favorable in terms of getting a lot more money for assistants in that salary pool, as well as just a discussion about how things can become more favorable for the University of Michigan, which is somewhat hamstrung by the transfer portal, in the sense that generally admissions can only take either a first-year guy or a graduate transfer. And that's outside of the hands of the football program, but there's rumors that he's targeting trying to make that a little bit more amenable for Michigan, and then obviously trying to figure out the NIL of it all, which Michigan tends to hamstring itself and things of that nature as well. So I think that that's the big thing. That's the big holdup. But until that Raiders job in particular opens up, and as it's expected to, and things essentially either Harbaugh gets the offer and turns it down, or gets it and accepts it, we'll be kind of sitting around waiting until we find out what's exactly going to happen.
Harbaugh is a kind of guy where just his history and his name are going to bring him towards some of these jobs and rumors, no matter what happens, no matter what's actually there. So someone has to kind of sift through all of that and filter out the stuff that doesn't matter. When did this stuff kind of heat up on your radar, as far as like just the day-to-day stuff that you do and looking at reports and reading things and talking to people? Was there anything at all? Is there anything at all that kind of jumps out to you as like, okay, this could be a legit kind of story going forward, or this could be something that actually happens?
I mean, I think it's legitimate, but I mean, at the same time, I haven't been paying a ton of attention to it, because even though I do think it's legitimate, I still don't think he's going to go anywhere. It would surprise me if he did. I'd not say that isn't a certain possibility, but it's one of those things where he loves it in Ann Arbor. His parents live next door. It's, this is where he's from. He had said this is just the beginning multiple times after the Ohio State game, heading into the Orange Bowl, after the Orange Bowl. To me, it would seem kind of like a weird sentiment to go out there and say this is just the beginning and then bolt. I started kind of paying attention to it, I think, when I got back from Florida on the 4th, and I think that was kind of the start of it. And there were the rumors that he was gauging interest that were reported by reputable people, not just your normal flamethrowers, guy like Bruce Feldman out there saying there is legitimate interest in both ways. That's when things kind of looked a little bit more normal. But at the same time, I mean, how many times have we seen, and this was my initial thought, how many times have we seen coaches act like, oh, I'm really interested in this other job, whether it be another college job or an NFL job, only to parlay that into a big pay raise? So that was my initial and my current still belief, is that it's not as much to do with him actually wanting to go somewhere else. It might appear to be that way, and it's exacerbated somewhat by him being on his own time. He always has been, right? Like last year, there was all these people that were saying like, well, if he hasn't signed that extension, he's probably going somewhere. And there were a lot of people who were very adamant. I was very adamant the other way, having spoken to my own sources, that he wasn't going anywhere. It's just that he has, when he's locked in, he doesn't feel like there's any kind of need to rush anything. And I think that this kind of falls into that same line. Now, with that in mind, again, that Raiders job, the fact that isn't open yet, and that they haven't been able to officially extend anything, I think that that's kind of what we're waiting on. And whether that's because he has legitimate interest in going to the Raiders, who gave him his first coaching opportunity back in 2002, or if he's just waiting to find out what those numbers are to parlay that into a counter offer to Michigan. I mean, we'll see. Again, I don't anticipate he's going anywhere.
It's the new year, which means that resolutions may be in store for you. And one of those ones that can be the toughest to stick to, of course, and the most popular one out there is staying in shape. But with Built Bar, you can get in shape while not losing some of that flavor that you love that can be what holds you back most of the time. Built Bar has 100% dark chocolate in all of its bars. So no matter what, you're going to be getting that kind of great flavor, no matter which flavor of Built Bar you choose. So head on over to Built.com right now and take a look at all the products. They've got flavors coming out all the time while giving you all the great nutrition that you want out of a bar, of course, too. We're talking about more than 15 grams of proteins with less than 5 net grams of carbs and sugars, less than 150 grams or 150 calories. Check that per bar in these Built Bars. So with all the nutrients that you want, all the flavor that you're craving, it's no better way to start off that New Year's resolution, or really just any time of year or day, just by using a Built Bar or any of their Built products to get yourself through it. Head on over to Built.com again and use our promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, it's LOCKED15 for 15% off over at Built.com. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On Big Ten, your first listen for everything you need to know about the conference every weekday. Alongside Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes, I'm Nate Dickinson. We are talking just after the Ohio State Buckeyes beat the Penn State Nittany Lions in a narrow, close game throughout, a low-scoring game. Definitely not the cleanest of Big Ten games that we've seen out there, Jay. But as we start to get into everything going on with Ohio State, we got a couple of things I want to talk to you about, but we are talking fresh off this win. Just trying to get into this Ohio State basketball conversation and how the team's been doing as of late. It was not the prettiest of games. 61-56 will tell you that, just the final score. But what were your takeaways from a win in which was, again, Ohio State won a game that was an uglier basketball game? That's a sign of a good team. You can't be too unhappy about it.
No, and Ohio State once again has lost another player, Michi Johnson, who was not playing in this game, didn't play against Wisconsin, which is why my takeaway for this game is simply survive in advance. You win a Big Ten basketball game. You're not at full strength. You have not been at full strength the entire season. So winning a game is big. Beating a team twice in the same season, that's huge. So there's a lot of positive takeaways when we look at totality, the makeup of this team today, knowing that they had a 22-day COVID pause. Chris Holtmann even missed a game due to testing positive to the COVID. And so taking all the negative stuff aside, the things that have happened this season, you win a Big Ten basketball game. You beat the same team twice in the same season. Those are two positives you can take after winning a game on Sunday afternoon.
Let's talk bigger picture here, Jay, because honestly, the Penn State win was, like I said, a good win. You win a game in a bit of a scrappy situation and you end up coming up on top. But as far as just what Ohio State's been up to as of late, going back earlier in the week, you lose a game to Wisconsin that was obviously one of the more marquee games of the week in the Big Ten. So some eyes were on there. I just want to get your kind of takeaways from that game and also just kind of how it plays into the way that Ohio State's been starting off this Big Ten season, because it's been a bit of an up and down start, both non-conference and conference. Ohio State trying to figure out exactly how it competes with everybody here.
Well, that game alone, it was another game. That was the first game Michi Johnson ended up missing. I do believe that was Chris Holtmann's first game back. He didn't get cleared to be back with the team until literally the day of the game. And so you don't have your coach in practice. You don't have your backup point guard. You're missing two other guys that had not played all season. Then going to Wisconsin, a hostile environment, a really good team, a team that's trying to get over the loss that they suffered to Ohio State earlier in the year. And then everyone knows about Johnny Davis and Brad Davison, two guys you have to watch out for. But I believe Wall in this game had 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. So it wasn't Davis. It wasn't Davison, even though Davison had 25 points. You have to look out for the big man in Wall. And I think that third option that Wisconsin had in that game was something that Ohio State had no answer for. Ohio State did look a step or two slow on defense. Rotations were late offensively. They weren't just shots weren't falling. They didn't look in sync. And it was the perfect storm. What Ohio State brought to the table, what Wisconsin brought to the table. The Badgers were the better team, and they won that game on Thursday night.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the positives with Ohio State, though, because, again, this is still one of the best teams in the country. It's going to be ranked as such when the rankings come out by the time that people are listening to this, if they get into it on a Monday here on our show. As Ohio State started out this season, there's been a couple of things that have been really, really obviously key to that big start. One of them's been E.J. Liddell. The Big Ten has been big on stars early in this season. That's been one of the big headlines. But Ohio State's one of the team that has one of the stars. In Liddell, he puts together a really, honestly, just efficient performance here today that helps Ohio State win this basketball game. But throughout the season, he's been one of those guys who's been there every single time in and out. What is it about him in particular that puts him up there with all those other players in the Big Ten in the conversation for national awards?
He knows how to hit you. Well, there's two things. One, he knows how to hurt you from all three levels, the in the paint, close range, mid-range game, and from deep. But he does a good job scoring through contact. And I do believe that there's a lot of players that can hit you and kill you from all three levels, but the scoring through the contact is not one of those things that they really excel at. It's something you have to work at, something that you have to really put the time in practice and hitting your coach or hitting the pads that your coach may have to help you learn what it's like to get hit and run through the contact. And Liddell has done that. And he really sometimes waits, feels the game out, and then picks and chooses his spots very wisely. We saw it today. We've seen it throughout the entirety of the season. Liddell has been so good about picking and choosing when he attacks, where he attacks, and making sure that if it's not his time to attack, he gets the ball to the open man. I mean, Liddell's an amazing player. What do you have? 19 points today, 8 rebounds. I mean, he should be a walking double-double machine. Doesn't average a double-double, but he should be averaging not just 10 and 10. He could average 20 and 10 on the season. That's basically how good he is as a player. He continues to be the leader that Ohio State needs with still having a team that's not 100% healthy.
He's been extremely impressive and extremely effective in getting Ohio State wins. We've seen, big guys out there like Hunter Dickinson, Kofi Cockburn. Their teams have not gotten off to the same kind of starts as an Ohio State has, just not getting the same kind of effectiveness and impact and wins that an Ohio State team has. But anyway, moving on here, Jay, I have a thing in just looking up what I want to talk to you about here today. A stat where I was just like, all right, I see this stat and I want to know like what it is behind this stat and how it works and why it is that it is this way. So I was looking at team rankings and I saw that Ohio State's one of the most efficient just shooting teams overall in the country. Where do those good shots come from? Liddell's obviously a big part of it, I'm sure, but just as far as getting the high efficiency shots that the Buckeyes have been getting and helping them get wins, what's contributing to that?
Two things. The emergence of Malachi Brandon and him being able to score in the mid-range and players being able to flow off of that. But also a lot of it is Zed Key as well, getting a lot of attention. He has been able to score a lot down low and players coming off of that. Well, there's one more I could add to that. You also have Jamari Wheeler, who's been a bright spot when Ohio State needed a bright spot at point guard, a different player than CJ Walker from last year. But Jamari Wheeler has been a steady mover of the basketball, and he's been a conductor on the basketball court. And I do think those three things together, of course, you could add in Liddell and all the other players, but even with Justin Orange not shooting very well at all over the past 3 or 4, maybe even 5 games now, Ohio State still finding ways to score the ball. Zed Key, Malachi Brandon, and you also have Jamari Wheeler being the conductor. Those three players are a big reason why Ohio State is getting a lot of high efficient shots and they're shooting the ball at times very well.
Go a little deeper on Malachi Brandon before we let you go, Jake, because that's, I feel like the guy who, if you're someone who maybe tunes into like the Big Ten news, but isn't super tuned into obviously every team every day, you might not know who Malachi Brandon is, but you're starting to hear his name. Tell us a little bit more about what this guy is and what makes him special.
About 6'6", 6'7". He's a wing player, could play the 2 guard or the small forward spot, shooting guard or small forward spot. He has been very good for a young, not just a youngster, just very good in general at the mid-range game and learning how to utilize angles and utilize his length and learning how to get a good feel of college basketball. He's adjusted to the higher level of physicality than what he was playing in high school. He's adjusted to the higher level of coaching than what he had in high school. He's adjusted to a lot of things, the classwork. Couple that with the road games you're playing. He's adjusted very, very well. And once he got a feel for the game, once he realized he can play with these guys, he had a 35-point game about a week and a half ago. That was kind of the peak. We're saying, oh, he can play. He knows he can play. And so he has a 3-point shot. He has a mid-range game. And he's going to be somebody that is going to be a fun player to watch, not just this season, not just next season. I hope Ohio State fans get 3 seasons of Malachi Brandon. But one interesting thing, little nerd note, he wears number 22. That number is retired at Ohio State. Jim Jackson, and I want to say Michael Redd. Don't quote me on Michael Redd, but I know for sure Jim Jackson, I think about to be a college basketball Hall of Famer, that's his number. Malachi Brandon had to call Jim Jackson to wear that number. But before doing so, he looked up some information about him because he didn't know much about Jim Jackson, the player, what he's done, what he meant to Ohio State, got a little information, called, asked for permission. And I do think not only is it fun that he did all that stuff, but he's living up to what that number means to Ohio State. Hey, you're wearing a number that's in the rafters. You got to play well, and he's doing just that.
Hey, Big Ten fans, Nate Dickinson here with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. Get Upside. Listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time you fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play Store right now. Use our promo code SCORE and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back for every gallon of gas. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app to get free and use promo code SCORE to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back just gets added right to your account. You can cash out at any time to your bank account, PayPal, or even an e-gift card for Amazon or other places too. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code SCORE to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. That's code SCORE. Jay Stevens, the host of Locked On Buckeyes, every single weekday, Monday through Friday. Jay, before we let you go, I wanted to talk a little bit on the football side here about just some of the coaching rumors around, obviously, all of the NFL, but names that get popped up all the time. Jim Harbaugh, we talked to Isaiah Hole about last week. Ryan Day has been attached to a couple of pro football jobs as well. It seems like, if you're asking my personal opinion, just something that's like a weird thing for him to do at a weird time, given like how good he has it right now at Ohio State. But I don't know. I just want to get your takes before we let you go here. Is there any sort of chance Ryan Day leaves right now? Is there any sort of job that you think could pull him away from the Buckeyes at any point, given any drastic changes don't occur?
I will never say there's no chance a coach leaves. I'm not that crazy. The coaching carousel in college football is crazy. Coaches are moving at a way faster clip than I expected. The turnover rate, because people want the microwave society. They want things done now. If you don't win in a year or two, you're out of here. I hate that. But I will never say never, especially with Ryan Day. He's going to be a highly sought-after coach. Almost at Oakland, Vegas, Las Vegas Raiders. I think it'll be he has a quarterback there, Derek Carr, who might be leaving Vegas very soon. Chicago Bears, there are rumors. Justin Fields, a connection they had, Day and Fields there in Columbus. I'll never say never. The one thing I think that might show us that he's not moving, he had to replace 4 coaches this year. Now, one found a new job in Matt Barnes. He's now at Memphis, but he did fire Coach Greg Studrara. He fired Al Washington. And Kerry Coombs, I heard there's rumors he might retire, but he's no longer at Ohio State either. Now, if you're going to leave, you don't make those changes as quickly as Ryan Day did. So I'm going to say I would never say never. I think based off the moves in the offseason Ryan Day has made, I think his actions have showed he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I had that in my notes too. Ohio State has been hiring coaches, which doesn't. I mean, like if you're going to leave, I guess I try to get your guys a job on the way out. But like that, it seems like a weird thing to do, is to start hiring coaches underneath you as you're getting ready to leave for another job. So I don't think there's any sort of way that Ryan Day leaves in this sort of a coaching cycle, given what the situation is at Ohio State, but also just what the situation is in the NFL. I don't think it's any sort of kind of realistic kind of thing, but it's weird to me to kind of picture him. I guess I just kind of want to ask the same question again, Jay. Is there any kind of job that could get him out of here? Because it doesn't seem like right now, at least logically. I know what you said, you never want to say never, but at least just logically thinking right now, it doesn't feel like there's any sort of reason why a pro job would want to take Ryan Day away from Ohio State.
Steelers, maybe.
Okay.
Cowboys, maybe. One of those jobs where you have stability and you're not going to be leaving after 2 or 3 years. I think Mike Tomlin's been in Pittsburgh for 15 years, maybe, never had a season below 500. Outside of that, I think Bill Cowher was there for at least 10 years, I believe. And so one of those jobs, I think, where you're not going to be gone. Now, you're going to say, well, Jay, the Bears, they don't have the same coach for a long period of time. The Packers do, but the Packers have Matt LaFleur. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. The Patriots, well, Bill Belichick's been there since the 90s, and he's still there. Like one of those jobs where it's an upper echelon type of job. It's a job where you're going to have stability. You're going to have a backing from your bosses and the front office. And it's a job that where if things get rough, if you have an 8-8 season, well, whatever it was, 17 games, you can't really have an 8-8 season. But if you have a season where you're struggling just a tad, 9-8 in that way, they're not going to jump ship and go away from you. And so I do think it's going to be, he can be very picky. The Raiders, maybe. I don't think the Bears, when I think about that, like stability, I don't think the Bears is the right spot for a Ryan Day type of coach based off the front office and the uncertainty and the instability that's there. But there's other jobs that they're going to hold on to you if you're successful. They're not going to ditch you if you have an off year or two. They're not going to do that. I think it's kind of what Ryan Day might be looking for, especially since he has a family. Ryan Day's success in college, he's not going to want to go somewhere. Let's just say he moves from Columbus to Miami. Let's say Miami Dolphins, just a random team out there. He's there for 3 years. Well, what happens? He has to up and move his family, where he's already had to move them numerous times that his coaching career. You know, I guarantee he does not want to hear his wife like, well, hold on. We moved from Columbus. We were there for 8 years. Now we're going to go down to Miami. We're here for 3. I want more stability. And I know that the wife does kind of affect certain decisions that coach makes. The stability I think Ryan Day will look for in a NFL coaching job if he goes that route. I mean, the Steelers make sense. To me, it makes sense. It's just I don't see Mike Tomlin going anywhere right now.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I just don't feel like if there's like any sort of ideal situation for him to leave, it's not here in this coaching cycle or off season. And obviously, if he keeps coaching well at Ohio State, there's going to be other opportunities for him to try and take that leap if that is what he desires. But I haven't seen any sort of indication that that is what he desires in any sort of way. So again, we'll keep an eye on all that. If anything does start to flare up in the news as things go on, of course, Ohio State's got an outstanding basketball season starting as well. It's not just football school by any means, and we'll have all sorts of stuff to talk to Jay about as the season progresses on the hardwood and the off season on the gridiron too. Until we hear from Jay next, of course, and if you need to keep up on Ohio State stuff, be sure to tune into Locked On Buckeyes every weekday, Monday through Friday. He'll be hosting things and keeping you up to date there. Jay, remind everyone where they can get a hold of you outside of just the show if they want to keep up with what you're up with.
Follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. That's Stevens with a PH and the number 07 at the end. Locked On Buckeyes every Monday through Friday. And then the Jay Stevens podcast is going to be back consistently once again. Had a little month hiatus due to some scheduling conflict, but that's over. We're back and in full force, better than ever. A lot of exciting things going on there at the Jay Stevens podcast.
Glad to hear it. We'll hear from you again here soon, Jay. Again, Jay Stevens with Locked On Buckeyes and everything you need to know about Ohio State with his finger on the pulse every weekday over there. We'll, again, talk to you again soon. And thanks for talking to us now.